May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. These words of comfort found in the book of Numbers were a blessing for God's people at the foot of a great mountain, ready to begin a long and difficult journey. They are a promise of God's care that still speaks to us today, reminding us that no matter where our path leads, his presence goes with us. This essay will explore that ancient journey, a story of faith, failure, discipline, and divine mercy. As we follow the Israelites on their winding road through the wilderness, our story plays out on a map across a harsh, unforgiving landscape. The people of Israel are gathered at the base of Mount Sinai where they received God's laws. Their destination is Canaan, the Promised Land, a beautiful, fertile country promised to Abraham long before. The path from Sinai to Canaan was not a straight line. It should have taken weeks of travel. Instead, their path became a long, circular one, a 40-year trek that tested their trust and taught them about God. The book of Numbers is the travel diary of this epic journey. It records the stops, the struggles, and the slow progress of a nation learning to follow God, moments of great hope and crushing disappointment. A people freed from slavery in Egypt now facing the daily challenge of trusting God in the desert. Their journey is physical and spiritual, from doubt to faith, from rebellion to obedience, from one generation to the next. As we trace their steps, we'll see how their story reflects our own. The wilderness tested Israel and taught them about God's character, just and holy, patient, merciful, always faithful to his promises. The book gets its name, Numbers, from the very first thing that happens in its pages: a census. A census is when a nation counts its people. Here, at the foot of Mount Sinai, God commands Moses to count all the men old enough to fight. This was not just for record-keeping, it organized a freed slave people into a structured nation. They were no longer just a crowd, they were being formed into the army of the Lord, ready to follow his commands and march toward the land he had prepared for them. This first census was a sign of a new beginning in the second year after leaving Egypt. Alongside Moses was his brother, Aaron, the high priest. Together they led a vast community of over 600,000 men, with their families. The census showed how God fulfilled his promise to Abraham, descendants as numerous as the stars. Numbers 33 later lists every stop, but first at Sinai, the people are counted, the tribes arranged, and the tabernacle, God's dwelling, set in the center, showing that God belongs at the center of life. Everything seemed ready, people organized, leaders in place, God dwelling among them, law given, covenant made, promise before them. The census marked the end of preparation and the beginning of their march. Spirits high, believing the destination was near, unaware of how much they still had to learn. With the census complete and the camp organized, the signal sounded to begin the march. A great pillar-like cloud lifted. It was the sign of God's presence and guidance. When the cloud moved, the people moved. When it stopped, they stopped. With trumpets sounding and 12 tribes marching in order, they left the shadow of Sinai and headed into the wilderness of Paran. The Levites, set apart for service, carried the tabernacle's precious articles. Each tribe had its banner and position. Imagine the sight: hundreds of thousands, families, livestock, moving as one, following the cloud, a nation led by their divine king. Numbers 33 lists the first stage through many encampments. From Sinai to Taberah, burning, to Kibroth Hattava, graves of craving. Despite order and guidance, heat, monotony, and hardship stirred discontent. Their faith, though tested, was not yet steady. 400 years of slavery left a mindset of complaint. They were free, but not yet free in trust. A major test was coming, from within. The perfect order of the march soon gave way to the ugly sound of complaining. They complained about hardships, grew tired of the journey and the food. They forgot slavery's misery and remembered only the food: fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, garlic. If only we had meat to eat. God had provided manna every day, daily bread from heaven, yet they called it miserable food. Their grumbling displeased the Lord. Fire broke out on the camp's outskirts, an immediate warning. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Jealousy challenged God's order. God intervened, defended Moses, and struck Miriam with leprosy. She remained outside the camp 7 days. Even after the Red Sea, manna, and the cloud, their default was doubt and complaint. They constantly tested God's patience. Each failure brought discipline, not cruelty, but a Holy Father teaching that choices have consequences. Their journey became a painful lesson in the cost of rebellion and the need to trust God, even when the path is hard. After traveling, they arrived at Kadesh Barnea on the southern border of the Promised Land, at the very edge of their destination. At God's command, Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to explore the land and bring back fruit. After 40 days, they returned with a massive cluster of grapes carried on a pole, confirming the land flowed with milk and honey. But 10 spies reported, "The people are powerful, the city's fortified, and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes." Only Joshua and Caleb spoke faith. "The land is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land and give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us." But the people listened to fear. Despair swept the camp. They wept all night, spoke of choosing a new leader, even returning to Egypt. They stood at the doorway of the Promised Land but refused to enter. Their fear outweighed their faith, changing their destiny. The refusal to enter was rebellion against God, believing the giants were bigger than their God, rejecting his gift. God's response was judgment and sorrow. Every man counted in the Sinai census would not enter the land. The spies explored 40 days. Israel would wander 40 years, 1 year for each day, until that generation passed. Only their children would inherit the promise. Of the 12 spies, only Joshua and Caleb would survive. The story fast-forwards through silent years, following the cloud, setting up camp, taking it down again, a long, slow, tragic outcome. Rebellions continued. Korah led leaders against Moses and Aaron. God opened the earth to swallow the rebels, underscoring his holiness and their appointed leadership. A journey of weeks became a 4-decade ordeal because they failed to trust God's promise and power, guidance in the gloom, God's pillar of cloud and fire. Even in punishment, God did not abandon them. His discipline was severe, yet his presence remained constant. By day, the cloud gave shade and direction. By night, the fire gave light, warmth, and security. The cloud dictated their rhythm. If it stayed 2 days, a month, a year, they stayed. When it moved, they followed. Beyond guidance, God provided. Every morning for 40 years, manna covered the ground, a constant miracle where no food could grow. When desperate for water, Moses struck the rock, water gushed out. Though rebellious, they did not starve or die of thirst. His mercy was present in judgment. Later, a hired prophet could only bless. God is not human, that he should lie. Does he promise and not fulfill? Nearly 40 years later, on the plains of Moab by the Jordan, they stood again at the border, ready for a second chance. God commanded a second census, a bookend to the first. Despite judgment, plagues, and hardship, the number of battle-ready men was similar. God had preserved his people. A new generation had grown up. Among those counted, none were from the first census, except the faithful two, Joshua and Caleb. This census marked a new era. The promise passed from one generation to the next. Moses appointed Joshua as his successor. Inheritance boundaries were prepared, laws and regulations set for entering the land. The long, painful chapter of wandering ended. A chapter of fulfillment was about to begin. Lessons from the wilderness, trusting God's unchanging promise. Numbers is more than history, it is a spiritual lesson. The primary lesson is stark. Unbelief has a high cost. They saw giants as bigger than God and lost what they hoped for. Their story is a solemn warning to us. When we focus on obstacles instead of God's power, we can miss the blessings he intends. Yet God's faithfulness shines. He disciplined them, guided them with his cloud, fed them with his manna, protected them, and never broke his promise. He finishes what he starts. The 40 years were a detour to prepare a people, his purpose never in jeopardy, his covenant unbroken. First, trust God's promises when you face your giants. Second, accept his provision with gratitude. Third, embrace his guidance and follow where he leads. As we close, return to the blessing that opened our journey. It is a promise for the Israelites then, and for us now. May you feel the Lord's blessing and protection in your journey. May you know the grace of his presence shining upon you. May you find, through deserts and detours, deep and lasting peace from trusting him. The story of Numbers reminds us, even when we are faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot disown himself. Trust in his unchanging promise.